Hey, beautiful friends. Picture two apartments. Same city, same neighborhood, similar rent. The first belongs to someone earning $180,000 a year. Walk inside and you'll find a massive television, a flashy sectional sofa, and kitchen appliances still in their boxes. Clothes hang in the closet with tags never removed. The spare bedroom has turned into a storage unit for things untouched in years. This person's stomach tightens every time they open their banking app. One bad month could collapse everything. The second belongs to someone earning $95,000 a year. What greets you at the door is space, a simple couch, a functional television, kitchen tools that actually get used, clothes that actually get worn, a room with an actual purpose. This person smiles when they open their banking app. They have 18 months of expenses saved and send 20% of every paycheck to investments. Same neighborhood, similar income, but a mountain of difference in financial security. My beautiful friends, this is not an income story. This is the story of the hidden relationship between stuff and money that most people never grasp. I'm Kent, and even when I was building my software company, I learned this the hard way. Today, I'm going to share what I learned. Everything you own charges you twice. The first is the obvious price tag. The second is the hidden cost most people never account for: storage, maintenance, mental energy, and opportunity cost. That treadmill taking up 20 square feet in your urban apartment carries roughly $600 to $1,000 a year in implicit rent. Add the guilt you feel every time you glance at it. Boats, motorcycles, sports equipment, all of them swallow about 10% of their value annually in maintenance costs. And opportunity cost? That $15,000 home gym setup, had it sat in index funds for 15 years, could be approaching $50,000 today. You didn't buy a home gym. You didn't buy your financial freedom. Minimalists understand this intuitively. They avoid possessions not because they hate nice things, but because they've calculated the true cost and decided most things simply aren't worth it. Rule 1. Calculate cost per use before any purchase. Before buying anything, estimate how many times you'll realistically use it. Divide the total cost by that number. This gives you the cost per use, which is the only honest measure of value. A $300 kitchen gadget you'll use twice a year costs $150 per use. That's an obscenely expensive way to accomplish whatever task it performs. Meanwhile, a $50 tool you use weekly costs less than $1 per use in the first year. This math cuts through marketing, emotion, and social pressure. It reveals what actually makes financial sense versus what just feels appealing in the moment. Rule 2. Apply the replacement test to everything you already own. Walk through your home and look at each item. Ask yourself a simple question. If this item disappeared today, would I spend money to replace it? Be honest. Would you actually go buy another fondue set? That bread maker collecting dust in the cabinet? Those clothes you haven't worn in 18 months? For most items, the honest answer is no. They exist in your life through inertia, not intention. Impulse purchases, gifts you felt obligated to keep, remnants of past hobbies and phases you've moved beyond. Items you wouldn't replace carry negative value. They cost you space, mental energy, and maintenance, without providing any corresponding benefit. When I was building my first software company, I had dozens of unused pieces of equipment piled up in the office. I sold all of it and made my first major investment with that money. That day, I learned that decluttering creates not just mental clarity, but financial freedom too. Rule 3, never upgrade out of boredom. There's a pattern I see constantly among people who earn good incomes but have nothing to show for it. They replace perfectly functional items simply because they're bored with them or because a newer version exists. Their television works perfectly, but the new model has slightly better contrast. Their phone runs flawlessly, but the latest release has a marginally improved camera. Their car transports them reliably, but the neighbor just bought something shinier. Minimalists adopt a clear policy: never replace something that functions properly. The phone that makes calls, sends messages, and runs apps does not need replacing because a newer one exists. This policy saves enormous sums over a lifetime. People replace their phones every 2 to 3 years, often while the previous one still works perfectly. Spread across 30 years, this habit costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. Boredom is not a malfunction. The desire for novelty is not a malfunction. The existence of newer alternatives is not a malfunction. Actual mechanical breakdown or genuine inability to perform required tasks is a malfunction. Everything else is marketing convincing you to solve problems you don't have. Rule 4. Create friction for spending and ease for saving. Human behavior follows the path of least resistance. If spending is easy and saving is difficult, you'll spend. If saving is easy and spending is difficult, you'll save. Minimalists engineer their environment so the right choice becomes the easy choice. Spending friction means removing stored credit card numbers from online retailers, requiring a 24-hour waiting period before any non-essential purchase, deleting shopping apps from your phone, and unsubscribing from promotional emails. Saving ease means automatic transfers to investment accounts on payday, keeping only small amounts in easily accessible checking, and treating savings like a fixed expense rather than an afterthought. These structural changes matter far more than willpower. Willpower depletes throughout the day. Environment is constant. The 24-hour waiting rule alone eliminates roughly 70% of impulse purchases. Most desires for objects fade within a day, if not acted upon immediately. Rule 5. Count your possessions regularly. This sounds obsessive until you actually do it. Counting forces awareness. Awareness prevents accumulation. Pick a category. Count how many items you own in that category. Write it down. The numbers often shock people who've never examined their consumption patterns objectively. How many shirts do you own? Most people guess low and discover they have 2 to 3 times what they estimated. Kitchen gadgets, shoes, books you'll never read again. The count itself changes behavior. Once you know you own 47 shirts, buying another feels different. You're not adding a shirt. You're bringing your collection to 48. The absurdity becomes visible. Minimalists track key categories over time. They set maximum thresholds, perhaps 30 items of clothing total, perhaps 15 books at any given time, perhaps a one-in, one-out policy where any new purchase requires removing something existing. These constraints prevent lifestyle creep. Without intentional limits, possessions expand to fill available space. With limits, each addition requires a conscious decision about what it's replacing. Rule 6. Rent or borrow before you buy. Most items people purchase get used intensively for a short period and then rarely afterward. The excitement of newness fades. The initial enthusiasm decreases. The item joins the collection of things owned but seldom touched. Minimalists test this pattern by renting or borrowing before committing to ownership. Want to get into camping? Rent equipment for the first few trips. Want to try woodworking? Borrow tools from a friend or use a makerspace? Want a kayak? Rent several times before purchasing. This approach accomplishes 2 things. First, it reveals whether the enthusiasm is genuine or temporary. Many interests fade after initial exploration. Better to discover this while renting than after purchasing equipment that collects dust indefinitely. Second, it clarifies exactly what you need. Rule 7. Understand the lifestyle multiplier effect. Everything you own connects to other things. A boat requires a trailer, a hitch-equipped vehicle, storage fees, maintenance supplies, safety equipment, and appropriate clothing. A purchase that seems singular actually triggers a cascade of supporting purchases. This is the lifestyle multiplier. Major purchases multiply into ecosystems of related expenses. The true cost is never just the item itself. Minimalists calculate the full ecosystem cost before any major purchase. They know that a $50,000 purchase might actually represent $80,000 or $120,000 when all multiplier expenses are included. This full accounting often transforms what seemed like a reasonable purchase into something clearly excessive. The multiplier effect also works in reverse. My beautiful friends, when I sold the boat, I didn't just sell the boat. I got rid of storage fees, insurance, registration costs, and towing expenses. The savings extended far beyond the item's value. Rule 8. Define enough before you start earning. Here's what constantly traps high earners. They never define what enough looks like, so they keep purchasing more without ever arriving at satisfaction. Their income increases, so they upgrade their lifestyle. The new lifestyle becomes normal, so they need another income increase to feel progress. This cycle continues indefinitely. People earning $600,000 feel just as financially stressed as people earning $160,000 because their expectations and expenses expanded alongside their income. Minimalists break this cycle by defining enough before they start earning. They decide in advance what kind of home is sufficient, what kind of car meets their needs, what level of material comfort constitutes genuine satisfaction. Then they earn toward that target rather than constantly moving the goalposts. When I made my first major exit, I asked myself one question: do my current living standards make me happy? When the answer was yes, I directed the vast majority of extra income toward investments and freedom rather than consumption. Rule 9. Measure wealth by optionality, not accumulation. The conventional view measures wealth by what you have: houses, cars, possessions, visible markers of success. Minimalists measure wealth differently. Can you leave a job that's destroying your mental health? Can you take 6 months off to handle a family emergency? Can you move to a new city? Can you start a business without guaranteed income? Can you retire before 65? Can you say no to opportunities that pay well but compromise your values? These options represent true wealth. They're only available to people who've built substantial margin between their income and expenses. Someone earning $400,000 but spending $395,000 has almost no optionality. They're chained to their income requirement. Someone earning $160,000 but spending $90,000 has extraordinary optionality. They can make choices based on preference rather than financial necessity. Every purchase isn't just exchanging money for an object, it's trading optionality for possession. Is this item worth reducing your ability to make free choices about your life? Sometimes yes, most often no. Rule 10. Practice cyclical decluttering rather than annual purging. Most people who attempt minimalism do a massive purge, feel great for a few weeks, and then gradually accumulate back to their starting point. The purge feels productive. The gradual reaccumulation goes unnoticed. Within 2 years, they're right back where they started. Minimalists avoid this pattern through cyclical decluttering. Rather than annual massive purges, they perform small, regular reviews. Weekly glances at incoming items. Monthly evaluation of one category. Quarterly assessment of overall accumulation trends. This cyclical approach catches accumulation early before it rebuilds to overwhelming levels. Removing 3 items per week is manageable and sustainable. Removing 300 items once a year feels overwhelming and often gets postponed indefinitely. The cyclical approach also maintains awareness. When you evaluate your possessions regularly, you notice patterns. You see which categories tend to grow. You identify which emotional states trigger acquisition. You recognize which marketing tactics work on you specifically. This awareness enables prevention rather than just treatment. My beautiful friends, let me give you a practical implementation you can start today. This week, walk through your home with the replacement test in mind. Identify 10 items you would not replace if they disappeared. Sell, donate, or discard those items. Notice how it feels to remove things you don't actually want. This month, implement the 24-hour rule for all non-essential purchases. Track how many purchase desires survive the waiting period versus how many evaporate. The data will reveal how much of your spending is impulsive rather than intentional. This quarter, count your possessions in 3 categories that tend to accumulate: clothing, kitchen items, and media or entertainment are useful starting points. Set a maximum threshold for each category based on what you actually use. The financial transformation from these practices compounds over time. Someone who applies these rules consistently for 5 years accumulates substantially less while saving substantially more. The gap between their lifestyle and their income creates wealth that can't be built any other way. Here's what nobody tells you about minimalism and money: the relationship is bidirectional. Owning less creates more money, but having more money also makes owning less feel natural. When your savings account is robust and your investments are growing, the urge to accumulate diminishes. The psychological need driving most consumption, the need for security and status, gets satisfied by financial strength rather than physical possessions. You don't need the stuff to feel successful because your bank account already tells you the story you want to hear. These cycles are powerful and can run in either direction. Spending less leads to saving more. Saving more creates security. Security reduces the emotional drive to spend. Reduced spending accelerates saving further. Each turn of the cycle reinforces the next. The reverse cycle is equally powerful but destructive. Spending everything creates insecurity. Insecurity drives more spending as temporary emotional relief. More spending deepens insecurity. The cycle continues until some external shock forces a breaking point. The choice between these cycles determines financial trajectory more than income ever could. High earners trapped in the destructive cycle build nothing. Modest earners riding the virtuous cycle build everything. The minimalist rules I've outlined aren't about suffering or deprivation. They're about recognizing that most consumption doesn't actually improve life satisfaction. Research consistently shows that beyond a baseline of security and comfort, additional purchases contribute minimally to well being. Yet most people spend as if happiness scales linearly with spending. Minimalists align their behavior with this research. They spend enough to be comfortable and then redirect the excess toward freedom rather than accumulation. That apartment I described at the beginning, the one belonging to someone earning $95,000 with 18 months of savings, belongs to someone applying these rules consistently. They didn't get there through exceptional income. They got there through exceptional clarity about what actually matters. The other apartment, the one belonging to someone earning $180,000, who is 2 paychecks away from crisis, belongs to someone who never questioned the assumption that more stuff equals a better life. Both lifestyles are available to you regardless of what you currently earn. The choice is simply whether you want to own your possessions or whether you're comfortable with your possessions owning you. The math strongly favors the first option. So does the peace of mind. See you soon, my beautiful friends.